Welcome everybody to another episode of CEOpen Mic. Today we're hosting Richard Dennys, guy who spent most of his life, if not entire his life, doing different marketing services or managing different marketing companies. Right now leads Game Lounge, one of the fastest growing and most profitable affiliate publishers company, shall I say, in the world?
Yeah, why not?
Hi Richard, nice to have you.
Hi, Bartik. Nice to meet you too. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Is it true that you spent most of your life doing different marketing stuff?
Yeah. I've been working in marketing. Well, I mean, I embarrassingly can tell you that I graduated in marketing in 1994. So that's a long time ago. So it's
Yeah, wow.
31 years ago. Yeah, exactly. I know, exactly. So I feel like a granddad in some of the meetings I have. But in the end of the day, your marketing is the same whatever you do. I mean, the people don't change, and you're trying to create a product that meets a need and make it for the right price that you make profits and cash, and you carry on and do it over and over again. It's not rocket science. That
Mm-hmm.
hasn't changed in the years I've worked.
True. Yeah. Absolutely. At the end of the day, we are still human beings, and our
Yeah.
desires are quite the same, right?
Yeah, the internet's come and gone, and well, it's still here and it's evolving, and payment systems have changed, and everything. But fundamentally, humans are eating and meeting and chatting, and they have all the
True.
needs, and that's all we're trying to solve at the end of the day.
But how did you get into iGaming industry? I mean, were you like casual player, and you just wanted to make it easier for everybody, or was it just money that sucked you in, and
What you mean? Yeah, the addiction or the cash? No, no. I'm not a gamer. I mean, I'm not even a PlayStation gamer. I've tried, but my brain doesn't have that. It doesn't generate any kind of pleasure at all in anything like this. So I'm fortunate or unfortunate like that. No. I was working. I've been working in affiliation for a while. I was running Web Games, which is an affiliate network, from 2016. And then before that, I was on client side. So I've always been working with or around affiliation. And then even before that, I worked for some internet publishers, either as a consultant or a CMO, CSO. So I've kind of worked in and around digital media for a very long time, probably as long as it's been around.
Mm.
And in things like SEO and SEM, PPC, I was working with those from 2002. So really, that was in the early stages of Google. It was before Google was even floated. It was before Google bought GoTo. It was before Google bought Urchin to make Google Analytics. So I've been immersed in the digital world for a very, very long time. And clearly, affiliate is a really nice way of earning a living, because if you get it right, it's very passive income.
Mm-hmm.
If you get it wrong, it can be the biggest mistake you make. But I believe in it, and the irony is, of course, when I worked for BBC for a while, working on their digital assets, and affiliate was a dirty word, because what you wanted was money up front for your media. You didn't want to give,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't want to take the risk with an advertiser that you only paid them when they made sales. And now that's all changed. Now that seems to be the way to do it, and the way that you can build profitable partnerships over the long term. So how did I get into it? I was at Web Gains. I was there 7 years. We turned it around. We made it profitable. And then, I'd done my job. So I was thinking, right, what do I do next? I was looking for somewhere, had lots of offers. And then I went with the people I like the most, which is pure and simple. And I met with Jonas, and I met with the shareholders, and we got along great. And that was pretty much it. They offered me the job at the end of January, and I started 2 weeks later. So today is my year anniversary. So that's how I'm good at it. So I didn't come for the addiction or cash. I came because it's people I like the look of and I wanted to work with. That was
All
it.
right. So it's safe to say that from your perspective, that was. I know it sounds bad, but that's not my intention. But just another company, and by some kind of coincidence, that happened to be iGaming. So
Yeah, exactly. And I like fixing things. I like things that are in distress, and I can come and try and make a bit of value. So that was another thing. Is there's all sorts of businesses that you could join that would be handle turning and making another million for people you don't really know. But that's not the case with Game Lounge. They had a need. I thought I could bring my experience to it, and some of my contacts and energy and passion, and so far that's borne fruit, because the first year's been pretty good.
yeah, but let's talk about that, because I'm not sure if everybody who listens to us or watches us is aware of the scale that Game Lounge is operating in. So if that's not a secret, what's the turnover? What's the number of sites? What kind of geos do you cover? Like how big is the operation?
Yeah, we've got 80 sites. We're very big in Northern Europe. In fact, our heartland is Europe.
Mhm.
We run Sphere Casino, which is the number one affiliate in Sweden. We have a number of others over. We just bought Manir Casino in the Netherlands. That's pretty much the number one there. Spain, Italy, all the way through. We have markets all over the place. We are prevalent in North America, South America, and Canada, but we kind of deprioritize some of that. Canada's important for us, but North America not so much, and LATAM is a much more experimental for us. To give you a sense of scale, we do about 180,000 NDCs a year. That's what we are roughly around. So that gives us market presence, it gives us reach, and it gives us a bit of negotiation power with all the big tier one casinos that we work with and operators. So yeah, we're doing well, and we've grown. Our revenues grew 20% last year. Our EBITDA grew over 50% last year, and our cash position was improved by over 25 million. So we've done well in the first 12 months. 2024 was started bad and it ended amazing.
And that's so much, to all of those people who say that SEO is dead and, Google essentially kills SEO-based affiliate marketing. So we're a walking example that no.
Yeah, I think the thing is, though, again, I've been working in SEO for a long time. I don't profess to know everything about it. I don't know the answers. Nobody knows the answers. Even Google doesn't know the answers because they create an algorithm. Even they don't fully understand. But I think if you forget about that, and this has always been the whole point of working in content, if you write valuable content by humans that is actually worth something and gets you a second click and gets engagement and gets comments and gets the UGC holy grail, then in the end Google work out you're an authority site or you're an authority writer, and they'll give you the appropriate coverage. That's pretty much it. And as long as you make your site free of friction, then again that's the sort of thing. So it's just basics, just doing the right things the right way. And if you try and game it or speed it up or AI it or anything else, that's where the traps are. And yes, there are companies that we see in the marketplace. We all know who they are. They've got lots of press attention that they're number one today, and then they're nowhere tomorrow, and then they're back to number one today. And that's great, fantastic, well done. But that's not the business model we're trying to build over the long term, which is helpful content that promotes player safety and allows our players to navigate around the bad guys and not lose quite so much money and have fun while they're doing it. That's really what our mission is. And as long as we stick to that and don't try and chase the cash or win all the awards, we've just got to keep players in mind. And as long as we do that, then we'll be fine.
Are you saying that all the let me put it that way, all the SEO tricks, like for instance buying the domains with some history from, I don't know, for 10 years there was a domain used by a hotel resort somewhere in Spain, and now you buy it and you put a website saying whatever about betting, casinos, or whatever. Are you saying that using these kind of techniques is not really the way to go, or are you saying that it's okay, but as long as you go with providing the real value to the players, that's fine, that's justified then?
Yeah, it's a different end of the same sausage, really. It's we're going one way, and then there's other ways to do it too. And if you need emergency cash and you're trying to promote something else with that traffic of your own, which is what's happening in those cases you're mentioning, then that's fair enough. And they're all about just pushing traffic down a funnel and converting it in their own houses. But we're not like that. We're a single player. We're an SEO content affiliate, and that's what we do. We're not an operator. We're not a software business. We just do SEO affiliation, and we provide registered players for casinos. And in order to build a business like that and build trust, which is the number one most important thing in everything we do, then we need to do it the right way. And if now and again Google thinks we've done something wrong, then we know that it isn't because we're gaming the system. It's because we've just probably kicked something over by mistake, or done something technical that we weren't realizing the effect of. Because we are trying to build a long-term sustainable business for everybody, all of our stakeholders and employees, everybody else. And we're not a fly-by-night, let's do it today and lose it tomorrow, but who cares because we're going to make cash in the meantime. That's not what our philosophy is not that at all.
If that's not a secret, if we are revealing too much of your secret know-how, then you don't have to answer that question. But how is the company structured? I mean, I can imagine that there is some kind of research and development people who try things with Google and see what works, what's not. Am I getting the right impression, or absolutely not?
No, we don't do that. I mean, no, we have a great SEO team. So we've got product people. So if you think about the business, we're third. So there's kind of back office and finance and legal and everybody else. Then there's a product team. So we've got an in-house platform that we call Hexagon, which has been built for ourselves. It's a custom solution that's built on good principles. It's a very good piece of work, and we don't have any issues with it at all. And that runs around calling data from all our operator partners, so we don't have to manually upload all of the transaction data from our partners. That happens automatically. Then it processes, then we have a data science team that sits alongside those guys, and that gives us all sorts of insight. So that's the kind of core stuff. And then we have market-specific teams that are around content and production and building relationships with players and casino reviews and all those kind of things. So they're in market. And that's pretty much it. We're 180 people, and we're roughly third. We do have SEO team that supports a dedicated SEO team, but they tend to be on strategy rather than little tricks here and there. We don't really rely on gimmicks or short-term stuff. And of course, we keep an eye on things. But it's more around, we have a site manager that wants to do this story, or how should we build a new URL, or what market should we go into, and where are the gap analysis? It tends to be that kind of thing, really. But no, I don't have anyone in my door saying, I've got another sneaky way that we can trick Google for the next 3 weeks. That's not the way we play it.
Yeah, I mean, from every angle, if you look at it, it's short term, right? It might work for you, if, as you said, if you want to get quick money here and now. Okay,
it's exhausting. That way of business is exhausting, and I'm a lazy person. I like doing things the right way, and so that at the end of the day, it should be passive. And maybe we're wrong, and maybe we're naive, and maybe we should be doing it a different way, and maybe we should be making more money. But we've got professional investors behind us, and we need to make sure that they feel comfortable in what we're doing. We want to sleep at night, so we don't want to be ripping people off or over encouraging people to spend money they haven't got in playing games. We're in a fun industry, and we want to keep it fun. That's really what we're all about, and that's a philosophy that, again, might sound naive and might sound simplistic, but it's worked for the last 12 months that I've been here. So we'll carry on for now.
I would say you make it sound very easy. I mean, you make it sound like, just simply create a content which is like...
What we make it sound is very boring, and boring is good in my world, because boring is stable and it's profitable and it brings cash in that we can use to invest in our people and our growth. And I talk about boring business as being good. Affiliation, if you think about it, compared to PPC or above the line or TV advertising, it's not the most sexy, exciting world. However, if you like profitable business, then it's the most sexy one there is, because it's very predictable, and I call it money on the beach. If you get it right, you can be lying on the beach while you're making your millions. So that's where we come from on that. So without high adrenaline, high risk reward, we're not quite there right now. And we can see with our competitors, we're in Q4 reporting season. You only have to see the results from our peer groups that have taken those big risks over the time to do parasite SEO, or they're doing large deals, or they're buying big companies, hoping that their SEO is going to say, a lot of those people have fallen down their faces, and that's now they're reaping the negative rewards of that. And I'm not saying that we're any better, but I'm saying that you have to be very careful in the risks you take, especially in an SEO-driven world where you're not the master of your own fortunes, because Google is.
Okay, so here's the tricky question. If the business is so boring, I mean, good boring, but still boring, everything that you said so far, I could summarize in just a couple of words. Just do your thing, and you will get money from that. I mean, just go by the book, do it the way it should be done, and you're gonna be good. So the tricky question is, did you have any moment of being really stressed last year with whatever coming from Google, from your own team, from the market, whatever?
Yeah. Listen, I switched jobs. I left a very, very good company doing very well with no safety net to join a gambling business. That's a big jump. And am I stressed over the time? Yeah, we've got 180 people, and they've all got their needs and wishes and wants, and I've got professional investors, and we've got very capable, able competitors, and my own personal motivation is to make sure that we are growing as fast as I need it to grow, and that doesn't come easy. So it might sound like I have a stressless life, but I can tell you it's exactly the opposite. Now, I haven't got the same pain as being if I was a listed business. That's a totally different level of scrutiny that we don't have at the moment. But But no, I can tell you what. I mean, if you look at my inbox and the way that people are always striving and trying to do new things and coming and going and blah, blah. I mean, there's plenty of stress here. Don't worry, I
Mm.
get my share. I get my share. But it's okay, and it's not as if I'm a young guy that hasn't done this before. I've been through pretty stressful situations. I've worked in startups for a long time, small businesses, listed businesses. There's lots of things I've done, and I had my own business for a while that didn't end very well, and that was very painful. So after going through something like that, you're pretty well. Your skin gets very thick.
I disagree. Because I run Create IT for almost 20 years now, and God, I'm old as well. But with everything that we've created so far, with all the processes around us, I would say when it comes to core processes in a company, they are really mature. I mean, they're well thought. They come
Yeah,
from our experience, not that we've read somewhere in the book that we have to implement them. And still, you're talking to the guy who, even now, after almost 20 years, if I see that something goes wrong in a company, that we lose the client because we did something wrong, or the market is changing, I don't know how well aware you are of that, but IT sector changed a lot,
yeah,
within the last, okay, sleepless nights and being having your head in a very wrong place.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
my daily routine.
Yeah, no, listen, I remember, and I remember my business when I was a consultant. You have agony and you have ecstasy, and there's nothing in between. There's
Yes,
just one end of the spectrum and the other.
exactly.
There's no middle ground when you have your own company. And I've done this for many people have asked me over the years, why don't you set up your own company? Why don't you do your own
Yeah,
thing? Why
all
don't
your
you
experience.
sign up
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I've gone through the pain of that. I just don't want to. I don't need to. And it doesn't actually drive me. I've been through that ego of it being my business, and I just think it's not worth it. It's not worth the personal. I mean, in your case, you've been fine because you were there 20 years, but you know what the risks are to your family and your lifestyle and everything else. And if it
Oh
all
yeah,
goes
for
wrong,
sure.
it's kind of it comes to an end soon. So if I don't have to do that, I don't want to do that. That's just one of those things. And I've been criticized heavily for it in the past by people who are good friends of mine. But oh, do you want to do this? Can't you do that? And I'm thinking, well, I can actually do that. And one of the things I really love doing is leading teams and being part of an arc of a story of something that's not working too well and then taking it to another level where it is working and it's thriving. And that's, for me, that's what motivates me. That's the bit I like. And not everyone can do that. Not everyone enjoys it. I mean, you've already made the point that I make it look easy, or I talk about it being easy. It really isn't easy, but I've just done it a few times and therefore it doesn't frighten me. It's a bit like public speaking. The more you do it, the more you're comfortable with it. And, people said to me when I'm on stage, gosh, how did you get to be like that? It's just because I've been shit many times on stage, and I've fallen on my face and I've made all the mistakes, and
Hmm.
and therefore I don't have too much of a fear of failure, and that can be a big deal.
That's so interesting what you said, and I think you're the first person I have an interview with here who says you have all the experience in place. You could run your own business, but you simply don't want to do it. Um,
Yeah,
I mean that's so new for me. Sorry about that.
I know. No, listen, I got to the age that everyone gets to, which is like late 20s, and you don't like your boss, and you think, well, I'm going to do this myself, and
Mm,
screw the world, and
yeah.
I know more than everybody else. But I've been through that, and it happened to me. And I ran away from a very good job, and I lived in Italy and learned SEO and SEM, and set up a travel business and hired lots of people, and it got to very big, and I was on TV, and
Hmm.
I went through the whole arc. I did a deal with EasyJet, Ryanair. It was all very exciting, and then all of a sudden, the financial crisis comes along in 2007, and completely and utterly air crashes my business in 3 weeks. And
Hmm.
then I spent 10 years trying to rebuild my capital system of my entire life. And I'm just thinking, well, I was 28 when I started. I was 38 when it failed. It took me until I was 48 to get my money back. I'm not doing that again. I enjoyed it, and at the time it was a wild ride. But no, listen. I mean, there's great projects out there, and
Hmm.
if you're fortunate enough to know the right people and have got the right track record, then hey, yeah, just try and meet new people, go to new markets. I'm very happy to move to a new country, to a new job,
Hmm.
but I'm very happy at Game Lounge. I mean, this is great. I'm living in Malta. I said earlier, the weather's nice here, and there's a fine line of a challenge here, and I think the industry is transforming extremely quickly, faster than anyone really realizes, and that presents all sorts of opportunities and challenges that I'm looking forward to taking on.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, you are at Game Lounge right now, so what else can you say, right?
No, of course. Yeah, exactly. I was at my last job for 7 years, and that was good. And hopefully I'm here for the same, if not longer here. I'm very happy.
I was with my company, with Create IT. We were at some point considering with Alex, who's another co-founder of Creative. We were thinking about hiring a person who would be feeling either chief operations officer or chief CEO. And frankly speaking, we never did it because the more I thought about it, the more I was getting aware that the expectations we would be putting on that very person would be basically insane. I mean, we would be irrational in naming our expectations. And with all your experience, because as you said, you've been working for a number of companies, mostly on a C-level positions. I can imagine it could happen quite a lot that
Yeah,
founder sits on a back seat. You do all the heavy lifting, but then he is sitting like showing every single mistake that you make, putting his emotions into you, which doesn't help at all.
yeah.
You don't have to put names here, but did you experience this
I've
kind
seen
of?
that a few times, and actually, early in my career, it tended to be the opportunities I was got offered. So, because I was a CMO for a long time for startups and VC-backed companies. It's a good example of what you describe, where they've got a problem, and then they feel they need to hire a person for that problem, and then they realize that the problem is much bigger than they thought it was, so
Yeah.
they need to hire a more senior person, and not realizing that if you hire a CMO, they're going to come with budget requirements, they're going to come with a team requirement. It's way more expensive than you can ever imagine it would be.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was parachuted in a couple of businesses that were growing fast. I was on my own. It was like, well, I can build this, but you're going to have to let me have either agencies or staff and a budget. And they were like, oh, I haven't really thought about that before. And I'm like, well, that's what we need. Go and get some more money, please. And then that's why it often fails. You often find somebody that's probably just post a seed round or maybe even a smaller Series A, go out and hire a chief marketing officer, very senior, and then they don't last very long because the expectations, like you describe, are too high. And it's really much more important that that founder or founding team educates themselves on what they really, really need.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, another one is, oh, we've just raised a big Series A. Let's go to America from Europe. Let's hire all sorts of senior people in the west coast of the US, and they're 400,000 a person. And we've got it sorted. Thanks very much. And and then they wonder why it fails. And it's because there's no culture. They don't understand the product. The product isn't ready. It hasn't really got product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of that out there. So no, I think you have to be very careful and cautious. If it was me, I would always look at an outsourced revenue generator as opposed to somebody that bring in. It's an expensive hire, and it's an even more expensive mistake. So you have to be very, very careful and cautious. On the other hand, I was hired by one of the founders for Game Lounge, and Jonas, he was very mature and said, "I've gone as far as I can go. We need somebody with a bit more experience than I have, just to get it to the next level."
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why I'm here. And I work with him unbelievably well. He is a really fantastic guy. I'm on the phone to him 3 or 4 times a day. We're WhatsApping the whole time, and he's just got that emotional maturity that realizes that he was perfectly happy just to let somebody with experience come in. And obviously, there's a process. They talk to lots of different people before I was hired, but the way we've got it sorted out right now is good. So I'm very happy the way that's worked.
So if that's not a secret, what kind of level of abstraction do you talk to Jonas, right? I mean, are you guys talking about operational things like, hey, what do I do with that, partner
No,
or whatever, or is it more strategic stuff?
it's not even that. It's corporate stuff. So I don't talk about him with strategy at all.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need to be in it. He hasn't hired me to, the only thing I talked about strategic and operational things are my C level that I've put
Mm-hmm.
in place. Jonas is, he won't mind me saying this. He's a fantastic, optimistic guy. He's always got millions of things in his head, and that was part of the issue, was that there was a lot going on. You have the founder privilege of saying, oh, well, let's go this, let's buy that, and very few people will say no. And so when I came here, there's quite a lot of different things going on, and all I've really done is deprioritized a lot of that stuff, or descaled it, or taken the cost out of the things
Mm-hmm.
with his backing and blessing. That's what he wanted me to do, as well as the other shareholders. And as a result, we have a very, not, I wouldn't say light touch, but we're in touch all the time. I spoke to him a couple of times today about various different things, but it's never about, are you doing this website, or,
Mm-hmm.
what about that guy that works in HR? There's none of those conversations. He's completely and utterly I feel like I've got his trust, and and vice versa. It's important that happens, because if you've got a founder or a previous CEO in your face, it can be extremely distracting, and actually you end up spending a lot of time on that than anything else, which is what you're supposed to be doing, which is scaling in good business and making it more efficient.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to, from the top of your head, to give out some of the advice, advice to some of the founders who are thinking about hiring a CEO, like, some kind of code of conduct or some kind of homework they should do before actually even thinking about hiring this kind of person or this kind of position to the company. Like, speaking from my experience, what would be the very basics of that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think number one, the most important thing is the chemistry you've got between you, because you really have to. It's a leap of faith from both sides. There's no guarantee of success.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think if I've ever done this the other way around. Not really. You need to be a particular type of person just to let go. It's very difficult, especially as your baby. You've literally
Yeah.
started something yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember I started my business at the same time as my second daughter was born. So effectively, it was a twin of it was like my third twin daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that emotional attachment to it. And nobody that you ever bring is ever going to have that emotional attachment. And you need to kind of make a mental adjustment for that first. You also need somebody that's going to be as passionate as you are about the industry, and isn't going to kind of, I don't know, take the culture too far away. When I first arrived, it was like, what are you going to do? Are you going to bring a new CEO? Are you going to bring loads of people in from your last company? Are you going to change the culture? And the answer is not really. The people who are here, they're pretty passionate. They're good. I'm just going to reorganize them a bit, but I'm not really going to change too much in terms of what they've built here already. So you want something like that. It's not just going to chuck out all the stuff you've built over the years and try and do it their way. You need to be very harmonic with the thinking and the thoughts. And it's about, it always comes down to trust, how quickly you can build trust with people. But I don't think there's any kind of simple metric or magic button or anything else. And you can see, because a lot of these things don't work. You see people coming in and leaving quickly. There's one today, one of big operators, CEO's left today, and that he's only been in there since the summer. You just don't know. You just don't know. And if it works out, then hooray. And if it doesn't, then you have to make a quick change and try it again. It's very difficult. And the emotional bias you'll have as a founder is not the same as you'll have as a shareholder. And you are both. And you have to really be extremely dispassionate about these things. The other thing not to worry too much about is whether your team will like them, because that doesn't really matter. It's whether or not that person's going to be effective and can build trust with their teams. Whenever I go in, it's like, well, what? I never think about whether the team's going to like me or not. It's just a case of finding. I've done this a few times. You go and you find your supporters, and then you build a business around those, because otherwise you're going to spend 2 or 3 years just fighting internal fights with people. And there isn't enough time for that. There just isn't enough time.
So because there's a very fine line when you run the company, operationally, there's a very, very fine line between running it in such a way that you give certain trust to certain people, and you tell them basically effectively what you say to them is do whatever you think is best. And then the other side of the very same table is, here's an Excel, here's a bunch of KPIs, here's what I expect you to do, and let's do the very heavily processed environment around it. So you make people follow exactly what you want them to do in very certain way you want them to do it.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, though. I hear you, but I think that's you. It may be the way that you run it, and I'm not going into your personal situation, but you've got to be very careful. It's like, I'm a fan of Nottingham Forest, right? So the football team in the 1970s, they won everything, and Brian Clough is a very charismatic football manager that's sadly died now. But his philosophy was, if you're going to bring good people in, don't tell them how to play football. Let them do their thing. I always say here with the C-level, I'm like, let the managers manage. Don't overmanage the company. Set the guidelines, set the parameters, set the target and the horizon. Identify what actually is the difference between horizon 1, 2, and 3. Focus them in the right direction, and then let them do their thing. That's very, very important for me. I am not a micromanager. I hate being micromanaged, and it's pushed me out of many companies, because I'm very comfortable with what I'm doing. I'm comfortable with the team I have, and if somebody's telling me to do things, I find it. It's almost like extreme reaction to it. And yeah, you have to be the sort of person that can let go and trust, because otherwise you end up just exhausting yourself in the actual minutiae. What you should be doing as a founder and a business owner is looking into the second and third horizons, i.e., what's coming next and where are we going, and have an operational team that delivers on those KPIs and OKRs and understands them completely, and is bonused and targeted and motivated towards quarterly milestones.
Hmm.
And then you've got the mixture between the strategic why and the operational how, and that's pretty much it. You kind of compartmentalizing it into those buckets.
So how exactly at Game Launch, how exactly does it work when it comes to setting some kind of goals? Do they come? I suppose they come from shareholders. Then, uh, correct me if I'm wrong. They come from shareholders. Then you kind of translate them to like lower level goals or certain steps that you as a company have to achieve. And then and then what? Do you hand it out to your managers so they could do whatever they think is best, or do you go to them to make them come up with I can
Yeah,
let me ask this.
yeah.
Okay.
So I hear your question. I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying. Let's start at the beginning. So what do my shareholders want? They just want a profitable, cash generative business, and ideally, the stronger the better. They're not The shareholders don't come to me and say, right, we want 35% growth this year, please, Richard. That's just not what they want. They ask me what I think we can do, and
Hmm.
when I arrived, it was like, can you grow this 20%? And I'm like, I think I can. I don't know, but I'll have a look at it. And in many businesses, there's just a few things you can do, and you can increase. You can. I mean, if nothing else, with a solid revenue line, you can just take costs out, and you're going to improve EBITDA and cash anyway. But that's kind of saving yourself to death. You don't really want to do that because you take critical mass out of your company.
Hmm.
It's the top line that you need to grow, and then look at the markets. You look at the TAMs and all that kind of thing. We're in Sweden. We're in other markets. There's definitely room to grow. We're not number one. We're only number one in one or two markets. We've got 80 markets. So there's clearly enough room to grow. And then it's a case of talking to the team and saying, right, okay, from a budgetary point of view, what do you think we'll do if we just carry on our growth path? And then what could we do with a little bit more investment in this horizon? So, i.e., if we spend in 2025, what we're going to get back in 2025. If we spend in 2025, what we're going to get back in 2026 and 2027. So what the investment ROI return window looks like. And depending on how much and how fast you have to grow, that's really where you put your resources. So if you think you've got stuff that you can put in now, so for example, some PPC, some very short term acquisition
Hmm.
that's going to bring you money in the same quarter, then that's one way of looking at it. If you're building a new site that's going to take 2 years to build its profile and attack a market, then that's obviously more horizon 2 and not so attractive. If you're looking for short cash, and then the third one is if you've got cash, you can buy a business that comes in and generates cash straight away. So you're using your balance sheet to improve your P&L, which is kind of, we've done a mixture of all those three things in last year. And also, if you've got any assets to sell,
Hmm.
so we sold a couple of things. We saw one big thing last year, and that helped our cash profile. So the C level I have, we've even brought in coaches just to tell them to stop thinking about operational stuff and how and what, and only think of the why, only think of the OKRs against the KPIs, which are different things.
Hmm.
And we've been very fortunate that my COO Rosie, she's got a background in that world. She hasn't got a background in gaming, but she's got a background in data delivery and performance indications. And so she's been instrumental in getting this stuff sorted out. She's been absolutely fantastic. So combined, there's five of us on the C level. There's me, myself, Rosie. We've got a CTO, Chief Revenue Officer, and Chief Financial Officer. And we've spent a lot of time working out exactly how we should push the business with guardrails. And then we have another layer underneath that of directors. We've said, guys, these are your guardrails. These are the aspiring targets. Now, let's get together and organise how you're going to do it. But other than that, it's up to you. And we're here when you need us, but let's just deliver.
So
And that's how we've done it.
to share some of your experience when it comes to, I'm thinking about all of these smaller companies now, the people who are listening to us, like, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe 50 people who are just on the verge where they cannot run the company anymore, driven by gut feeling and driven by founder who's
Emotions. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
emotions and all. Yeah, exactly. And quite often, what I see is that they don't really know. They know they have to change something, but they don't really know how to do it. I mean, they've heard
Yeah,
about KPIs, they've heard about setting goals,
yeah,
they've heard about quarterly meetings with the directors or managers, but they don't really know what to do on on those
no.
meetings. So
It's a massive transformation. It's very hard, and if you look at some of the growth paths of some of the very successful businesses, they're outliers. These are people who've managed to go from a generalist, which is what you have to be when you're a startup.
Mhm,
Everyone has to be a generalist. Everyone has to do a little bit of this. You have to do a bit of post, a bit of coffee making, and a bit of software development, and a bit of marketing. And then as you get bigger, you widen it out, and then you're putting in specialists.
mhm,
That first of all functional specialists and then operational specialists, and you're transforming your team. Changing it from a rowing boat to a speedboat, into a rocket ship, into a space station, and that's really difficult. And it's not everyone that can do that. And if you look at the ones that have done that, they are very unusual, extreme people. If you look at people like the guys behind LinkedIn or Salesforce, or those people, they've usually come from much bigger companies beforehand.
mhm,
They've seen how it works and seen where they need to get to. As opposed to somebody that hasn't been in that world, they can find it very difficult. But on the same token, you can also see people in those big companies try and start up things, and their brains just don't work that way. They do a lot of meetings and they have a lot of talks and they talk to the right people, but
mhm,
they have an issue with delivery and execution, which is obviously something you have to do at the beginning.
mhm,
So it's very difficult to transform from a business of a few generalists to a larger business of specialists.
mhm,
I mean, just understanding that you have to make that change is a big step.
mhm,
And then you have to be brutal, absolutely brutal on your talent. You have to be, I mean, if you've read The Hard Things About the Hard Things, that's the Ben Horowitz book, that's a brilliant book. And that pretty much describes what it's like to fast scale a technology business. And one of the key themes in that is be totally brutal on who you hire and totally brutal on who you keep.
mhm.
Because if they don't work out, then they've got to go. And that sounds very hard. And I was listening to a conversation the other day with a colleague, a peer of mine, who was saying you have to be kind about it. I mean, you have to be hard, but you have to be nice to people, explaining why it's not working out. But you have to be absolutely nailed on if these people are good or not, and if they're not, they have to go. Otherwise, they'll drag you down. It's a small business when you've got tight cash flows. Making one talent mistake can be the end of your company.
Mhm.
So, number one, you've got to make sure that they are the right fit culturally, they're the right fit intellectually, they're the right fit motivationally. There's a tight probation period that they don't survive if they haven't worked out, and if they haven't worked out, they need to go. And it's a tough one as a scaling owner, but it's a kill or cure. It's the way it works.
The problem that I always had at Create IT when we were growing rapidly was that if let's say, just a stupid example, if I hire somebody for a leading position and that person did not deliver what they were supposed to deliver, if I let the person go, I mean, I feel like I should let the person go because they don't deliver. But then
Yeah,
again, if I let them go, I need to start recruitment process, which will take
I
time.
know.
Then
Yeah,
another onboarding and another testing period. So another
yeah,
half of the year is wasted, or even more.
yeah.
Um, so
You're right. You're absolutely right, and that's the hardest problem you're going to ever have scaling business. And if you
I'm
ask
glad you
me,
said it.
when no,
There's nothing wrong with me.
no, absolutely not. No. This is completely normal, and there's many businesses who've made this hires. And the trouble is, it is the old saying: A players bring A players, B players bring C players. And if
Mhm,
you get that wrong, you end up with a company full of non-performing people for no fault of their own. It just could be a cultural mismatch.
mhm,
You're kind of dead. It's almost impossible to change it. And at the beginning of my career, I used to think HR was a bunch of troublemakers putting processes in the company I didn't need or want as a founder.
uh-huh,
And now the HR team is the most important team in the company by
mhm,
miles.
mhm,
And the HR director is the most important person I ever deal with by miles.
mhm.
So, if you're going to think about who do I hire first, marketing, sales, or operations, I'll say a very, very good HR manager or
That's
director.
interesting. That's interesting because
Yeah.
everybody, I mean, not everybody, but most of the founders, they would say sales,
Yeah.
then like long gap, very big gap, and then everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. But then again, like you say, if you hire a bad salesperson, which although it's not bad or a bad fit or doesn't get it or it doesn't work out,
Hmm.
you're stuck with a very expensive tea maker. That's what you've got. And that again will kill you. So unless you've got a process in to hire the right people the right way, with the right onboarding and the right training and the right growth and everything else, and also the right systems if it doesn't work out,
Hmm.
then you're going to go around in circles for a long time.
Hmm. Hmm. But
Would be my view, and that's certainly the way I look at it.
so there's no. I'm looking for the simple answer. Like, what would you do in that
Yeah,
situation? But there's
if it
not.
was easy, we'd all be billionaires, wouldn't we?
True.
Yeah,
True.
yeah,
True.
but I don't know. I can't. I don't know how big your business is. I like businesses between 150 and 250 people because
Hmm.
it's big enough that you can have these systems in, but not too big enough that you lose your personality and you don't know who everyone is.
Hmm.
And once you get to that 200, I can't remember what the syndrome is. It says once you get past 250, you end up getting another layer of people that you probably don't need, and it's difficult to keep on top of everything. And
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So I like working within this kind of Goldilocks zone really of companies.
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
worked for big companies. Like I say, I've worked at BBC and PwC and Nokia and everywhere else, and there are these megaliths of thousands and thousands of people, and it did my head in. I couldn't see the windows. I couldn't see outside, literally and physically. But also from a company, I didn't know how much we charged for our services. I was a marketing director. I had no idea,
Hmm.
and that doesn't suit me. That's not my world.
Hmm. Getting back to what you said earlier, you sound like a guy who runs the company kind of Excel driven. Not really. Well, what I'm trying to say is that you take all the emotions out of the equation, and some of the people might think that all the decisions that you take are not based on emotions, but I don't believe that's true. I mean, obviously, you must have these kind of situations where I don't know. You have a person who don't deliver. I don't know, or the person who delivers, but you simply don't like them. and uh,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, and I don't think that's true. Well, the danger is that you hire in your own image. It's the most important thing you need to avoid.
Mhm.
And I often say to people, oh, in fact, we have these conversations now and again here or wherever I work. It sounds like I have lots of jobs. I've had 2 jobs in 12 years, right? So I have lots of jobs. But sometimes you need conflict. So you can only move forward sometimes with conflict. And people are like, oh, I don't like that person, or they're not working out. It's often a personality clash, and
Mhm.
the person with a bigger personality tends to win, and then the person with the weaker personality goes, and that can be a loss, and that can be you can lose good people that way.
Mhm.
So you have to be very mindful of that. And there's that saying that the pearl is made from the irritation of a sand grain in a shell. Conflict can be very good in a business to move yourself forward. If you have a very comfy, happy team, then you end up doing the same thing over and over again, and eventually get disrupted, and you lose your business. So
Yeah.
you do need to change, and you do need it's that combination of hunters and farmers. You need a different type of person to move yourself forward. If you're all happy farmers, then yeah, that's fine. You'll feed yourself today, but eventually you run out of food, and you need that hunter mentality as well. Or another way of looking at it is a finder, minder, grinder. You need a balance of different
Mhm.
people. You can't just have the same people doing the same thing in a very cozy, happy way, because it just goes really stale really quickly, and everyone just gets entitled and just wants more money and does less work. I mean, that's
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not unemotional, and if you think of the people that I work with, if you ask them, they'll say that I'm highly emotional, and sometimes I'm a pain in the ass. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I ask difficult questions. It's my job to do that. It's my job to ask what does that person do, or are they
Mhm.
bringing value to the company, or should we hire this person, or should we bring that agency? And that's my job. I mean, I'm a troubleshooter, and I'm an agitator. That's really the job of a CEO internally.
Mhm.
And I'm also a salesperson for the business and for the profile and for to external stakeholders, whether that's our shareholders or to our public externals.
Mhm.
There's lots of different things you have to do, and yeah, I mean, going back to your question about is it stressful? Yes, it's very stressful, but you need stress. You need stress in the business to push it forward, and there is a fear of failure, not to stop you doing things, but to keep you doing things, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I manage that sometimes. Sometimes I'll just sit there quietly and just think, Jesus, what am I doing? How did it get to this? And then you have that wobble, and then you just think, I'll just get on with it,
Mhm.
move
Well,
forward.
it took me a while to learn that I'm a fear-driven person. I mean, I always thought that I run the company, to achieve some bigger goals, get bigger, get richer, get, whatever. But it took me a while to realize that actually that's the fear that drives me. That, what if, the company fails? What if I lose all the clients? What if, whatever?
Yeah,
And that's
that's
what
very
pushes
common.
me to.
And that's a good thing. The same fear that stops you from doing things is the fear that keeps
Yeah.
you doing things. There's different types of people. I mean, there's plenty of people say, I'm going to leave this job and I'm going to set up my own business, and they never, ever, ever do it.
Hmm.
And just to make that first step out without a parachute is incredibly brave, and not everybody makes it work. But, just to get that far is amazing and makes you very, very unique in the world.
Hmm.
And also many people I've spoken to, and you've probably talked to most people that are successful in their companies, what drives you is never money. It's never money. And I can promise you this, when the money arrives, it doesn't give you any fulfillment whatsoever.
Hmm.
So, and I've been through that a few times, and you look at your bank account and go, well, that's fine, but you don't marry your bank account. It doesn't tuck you in bed at night, doesn't make you dinner.
Yeah.
Money doesn't, it's just a facilitator. It's just a thing. It's in a
Yeah.
bank account. It's a number. Yes, you can buy a bit more than you could buy yesterday and go on holidays you couldn't go on before, but it doesn't make you happy. Absolutely doesn't make you happy.
Hmm.
It's love with your friends, and it's the fulfillment and your self-actualization that makes you feel okay. And yeah, it's a mistake. You see all this struggle porn out there, all this startups. I'm going to be driving my Lamborghini and everything else. I promise you, it doesn't make you happy. What makes you happy is to build something sustainable and with people you enjoy hanging out with.
Hmm.
And it's all about the journey. It always is. I sound like an old guy at the end of my life, and I'm clearly not. But my experience is it's about the people you spend your time with, having fun,
Hmm.
and doing something successful. It's about the build, and yeah, that's definitely the way I feel.
So, first of all, yes, you are old. I am old too, and that's not a bad thing. But
Grey
second of
hairs
all,
might be able to show it.
no, no, no. But more seriously, again, you said that it's important to for that journey with the people you enjoy being with, and I
Yeah,
fully agree. I would even dare to say that the top management of Create IT, those are people who I simply enjoy spending time with. Even if we
yeah,
didn't work at Create IT, we would go for a dinner and we'd have a very good time. But then again, earlier you said that if the person doesn't deliver, then there's a problem. The company's interest is the most important one, since you're CEO and you're responsible for company's interest, not for your personal well-being and all that.
yeah. You have a duty of care, and I think maybe I was being more simplistic. Clearly, if
Mm.
something isn't working, there's always a way. Sometimes they're just misdirected, and you can change things, and you can get them back on the track, and
Mm.
then it can work. But you do need to make an early call. And yes, again, to quote somebody in my peer group, many CEOs very rarely would regret an early decision to let somebody go. It's very difficult. I don't think that's ever happened to me either. You regret what you didn't do rather than what you have done.
Hmm.
And there's lots of times I can think that we let somebody work longer in a business they just weren't suited to. They weren't happy, and it wasn't working. And and if you're kind to people and you support them and help them out of the business and help you into something new, then that's always the way. I've still got lots of people that I've worked with and it didn't work out, but then in the next company it did work out because I could see that there was a better shape hole
Hmm.
for them to join, and vice versa. I've done the same. I've left companies that hasn't worked for me, and then I've joined the same people later, and it's been great. So,
Hmm.
you just never know. It's just a fortune of time and how it works. But yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
It's like I said before, your hiring and firing decisions are the most important things that there can ever be. All companies, doesn't matter how technology they are, they're still a collection of human beings.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, even if you're the most agile of affiliate businesses, you've still got you and some other people,
Yeah.
or whether it's your relationships with your operators or your supply vendors or whatever it might be. It's all about human beings.
Hmm. Hmm. Let me change the topic a little bit. You a couple of minutes ago, you touched a little bit that your role as a CEO, it changes a little bit when you talk internally to the people you work with, and then it changes a little bit when you're open to public, and then it changes a little bit when you talk to your shareholders or founders.
Yeah,
If you were to say percentage-wise, out of those three areas that you have to cover, like how much effort do you put into each of them?
yeah. So I would say because I've got a very good C level, they spend their time on the downward management and the day to day operational running of the business. So I do. I would say that I move. I talk to a lot of people as I move around the company. I have an open door policy. People can come and say hello to me. We have a very open lunch area, so I talk to people there. But I'm not. I'm very careful and cautious not to instruct anyone that
Hmm.
doesn't work for me as a line manager.
Hmm.
I don't want to. Because what happens is you get somebody in their line manager coming to me. Well, why did you talk to me like this? Why did you?
Yeah.
I'm very respectful of the the management responsibility of my teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't do that. What I do is give them a bit more, hey guys, this is where we're going. This is what we're going for. Aren't we doing well? A lot of cheerleading. I have a quarterly AMA where anyone can ask any question whatsoever. Ask me anything. That happens every quarter. And we also present our internal numbers. So I do that. That's my kind of cheerleading part of that role. But then the rest of the time, I'm working very hard with the C-level on what's coming around the corner and making sure we anticipate, we call it the man overboard plan. We have lots of metaphors in the company around sort of like a sailing boat, and we have a man overboard plan that we're working on a lot, which is the contingency planning. So if anything goes wrong, we're in an SEO-driven iGaming affiliate, and anything can go wrong at any one time. So we spend quite a lot of time on those scenario plans, and I mean that gives us comfort knowing that if the worst does happen in some markets, then we can manage that. There's my external relationships, which are like this call here, and just pitching what we're doing and making sure that people understand it, the kind of company we are. And then, of course, I do have my board level conversations, which is a pretty light touch weekly call. And then on a quarterly basis, we do board presentations, and that's pretty much it. So my days are filled,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm fortunate to be able to plot my own course really, but in this current set of circumstances. But I would say I'm always moving between the front and the back of the business. That's kind of my job. I'm either leading from the front, cheerleading externally, or I'm right at the back, making sure everybody's okay, and I'm trying to remove all the obstacles and friction from everyone doing their jobs. So it's that's kind of the way I do it.
If you were to draw a pie chart, would you say that it's more or less 50-50, like 50% of your time as internal operations and 50% is like, okay, 45% is like outside, like promoting the company, being...
Yeah, if it was 50%, I think my COO would resign. So
Okay.
I think she'd be so sick of me being involved in the company that she would be out. And
Fair point.
so I've got the C-level are a very good team. They're a very good collection of people.
Mm-hmm.
They were here already when I got here, and we've just repurposed and repointed a few of them. So no, I would say probably I spend a lot of my time talking to them,
Mm-hmm.
and just we have these sort of hive mind conversations that what if, have you thought about this, and a bit of coaching. But the rest of my time is, I'd say 60%, maybe more than that, is external relations and
Right.
board conversations.
Right.
Because the worst thing you can have in any business is shocks, and I need to make sure that everybody understands where those shocks might come and be ready for them if they do come. And at the moment, like I said to you before, it's boring, but any business can go quickly from boring to, terrifying or exhilarating or anything else. And then one more thing I forgot to mention was the thing about business like this and business at a multi-year. There's a book by Simon Sinek which is about the infinite. I think it's called The Infinite Business or the Endless Business. The challenge of what are you going for? What's the actual end game for everybody when you're working together? It's not like you're running a race with an end game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you keep people motivated year after year, month after month, day after day, when there is no sell or there's no fundraise or there's no big line in the sand that everyone's racing towards in the startup world? There often is,
Mm-hmm.
which is the next level of funding, or it could be an exit, or it could be buying some other company.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge. So that's always something that was in our mind to say, right, how do we motivate people to get to that next bit of performance?
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to do. Number one, you have to focus everyone to keep looking out the windows to say that we're under competitive pressure and find that common purpose really that everyone's pushing towards. In our case, it's growing fast, but in a very responsible and safe manner for our players to have fun and not lose too much money. That's a really big push for us to make sure that we can get there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we haven't really touched on it, but where the industry is changing, clearly the industry is changing, and be ready for those changes. We've got this whole push around regulation on one side, crypto, casino, social gaming on the other side. And we can see people moving from one to the other, and that's kind of crazy to watch right now. There was an article in the SBC magazine today about the worlds of crypto and gaming are colliding like you've never seen before, and they're never going to change. That's a huge tectonic shift that the regulated license operators are going to really struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
because the world is being flooded by unlicensed crypto social casinos.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we manage that as an affiliate? We've got the choice of promoting that or not. If you're a licensed casino, then operator, then you don't have that choice. So it's very interesting to see how the world's going to pan out. And when we've got to be ready for that. That's really what the kind of business we're trying to build,
Mm-hmm.
to be agile enough to move into those spaces if we need to.
And then those contingency plans. Is it really that plan? I mean, because as I can imagine it, you sit in a boardroom with your people, you brainstorm a lot, then you write down some kind of document with some steps to be taken if A happens or B happens after some time or whatever. Is it really like that, or is it more that you're simply aware something like that could happen and have some idea what to do then if it happens?
Yeah, it's a philosophy more than anything else. It's not necessarily saying, right, if XYZ market goes dead, then people ABC have to leave. That's not what we're building here. We're building a business with enough resilience and redundancy in it that we can carry the emergency or the drama for long enough to then fix it. And I've worked in businesses before where you're working on 2, 3, 4, maybe sometimes 1 or even 0.5% EBITDA margin, cash margin.
Mm-hmm.
And a swing of 5% either way is going to bring you into profit or loss. And that's a really risky place to be. And even in my own business, we were really focusing on top line growth all the time at the expense of bottom line and cash conservation. And then when along comes the GFC and the big cash crunch in 2008, we had no resilience at all,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore we died very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean with the man overboard plan, is building enough space and light and time into a company that if you do lose rankings or if you do have something that's really bad that happens to you, you can carry through until you can fix it and not be in the position where 3 months down the line we're going to run out of cash and that's the end of us. I mean, we work very much on a 50% EBITDA margin, which is unusual for our business. I mean, I think if you're on a single market affiliate, that's quite common. But if you're doing it across 80 markets, that's very unusual. And we're very careful and cautious to make sure we have that buffer in what we're doing. So if we do have we don't have a concentration in any area, and if one big thing comes down, then at least we've got a year or two to fix it before we have to make some emergency action. So that's the difference, really. It's not necessarily saying, right, I'm going to get rid of that team tomorrow if this fails. That's not the way we look at it.
Right. Here's my problem. I look at the list of questions that I should ask you, and we have at least 10 more questions here. But frankly speaking, I'm so impressed with how mature you are and how experienced you are when it comes to this kind of management stuff, or how to basically run the company. Let me put it that way, simply. Because quite often when I talk to founders, and I mostly talk to founders, you could see that they are still learning the things, and some of the things which are obvious to me are not obvious to them, and some of the things that are obvious to them are not really obvious for the others. And you seem like a guy who you basically had the opportunity to witness all of those, and you just picked the very best approaches for you. And I have to say, I'm really impressed about that, seriously.
Oh, thank you. I mean, the thing is, don't forget that I've made a lot of mistakes. I mean, it's not as if this is easy, and I still make mistakes. And I think the day you think you know the answer to everything is the day it's all over. I absolutely don't know, and I learn everything. I mean, this iGaming industry for me is a totally new world for me. It's affiliation CPA, but I'm still understanding. I mean, even the differences between types of casino slots. I'm not a player. I have never really played a game of online slots, or I've never played a game of poker. I'm not a gambling person. So I'm always learning about that and understanding the motivations there. So that my point is, never ever stop learning. Never think you're the smartest guy in the room. Always assume you're the stupidest guy in the room. And that goes a long way. And make people to explain to you very, very clear terms what the hell they're talking about is something I've kind of built a career on.
I can tell. I mean, of course, if you told me that you know everything right now and you don't learn and you don't plan to learn, well, I would be kind of worried. But then again, you could clearly see that if you deeply understand why you manage the company in a certain way and why you structure certain things in a certain way, if you know why you do it, then if you implement it in a real life, it really does work. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that I've seen people who read the very same book. One person understood like 90% of it, while another one understood like 50% of it. And even if they, on surface, you could tell that they are doing the very same thing. They're trying to implement the very same thing in a company. for some reason it doesn't work for the second person who
Yeah.
didn't
You know,
really
not everybody's born to be a leader. Not everybody's born to be somebody that's motivated by motivating other people. And we've got a coach in the business or performance manager that comes in and has always worked with me in different companies I've worked for. She's the first person I bring in, and we do these kind of motivational profiles on everybody in the company. So the whole C-level, all of the senior directors, we've gone through these, question-based profiles for everybody, and it gives us a bit of empathy. It doesn't give us the kind of DNA code of everybody, but it gives us the empathy of the motivations of each other. And so when we're in conflict, or when we're not agreeing, or when we're trying to move together as a unit, we can understand the motivations of each other, and that's very important to us. Very important to me that I understand if somebody's sort of standing there with their heels dug in for a project, I need to know why, or why they feel very threatened because I want to move faster, or whatever it might be. So it's all about the biology, chemistry, and physics of a team. And if you get that right, and if you can lose the drama and get everyone pointing in the right direction, it's amazing what you can achieve.
And it's so funny for me to hear that, because when you start a company and you have like 3, 5, 10 people, you base every single thing on that chemistry that you just explained. Then as the company grows, you tend to become, I mean, as a founder or manager of this kind of company, you tend to become a more of a like, oh, I need to grow, so I need to focus more on Excels and whatever people deliver, and it shouldn't really matter if I feel good with that person in the same room or I don't, because all that matters are the results. And then
Yeah.
you get to the point where you're in right now, where you say, all right, Excels are important. What people are delivering is important. But then again, if you don't get that chemistry again with the people, it will
Yeah.
simply never work. And
Yeah.
you need to go through that very whole process to really understand it.
Yeah. I don't believe in management by spreadsheet. I just don't. That isn't the way to run a company at all. I hear what you're saying, but I mean, many companies I've gone in as a consultant over the years previously, where they're overanalyzing everything, and they're going for
Mhm.
cheap reach, they're going for the most efficient ROIs and everything else, and in the end, their addressable market goes so small that they can't
Yeah,
actually operate.
yeah.
And you need to build. I'm a big believer in serendipity, in happy accidents. I think you should always be experimenting. You should always be now and again turning off the dials and using the force a bit more. I just think we just don't appreciate our emotional intelligence enough. And sometimes that instinct is right, and sometimes we just have to trust those instincts, and we can't take too many risks. But many times I'm like, look, this data is telling me this, but I just don't believe it, and therefore my experience is overlaid on that, and therefore we'll just test it one more time. On the other hand, there's a lot of opinion out there about why we should be doing things or why things haven't worked, and in those cases, I tend to do lean on data and say, well, let's just take the opinion out of it and let's see what the data tells us. So it's a line between the two, isn't it? Really, you can have too much analysis paralysis. That will slow you down and you can never do anything. But on the other hand, you still need to have the kind of core OKRs, KPIs, just to know what environment you work in. I mean, to give you an example, we've got lots of markets. We've got one market which is making 87% net EBITDA on what they're doing on a big revenue, and then others that are doing 23%. And am I going to make the 23% going to 87%? No, because it's a different market, it's a different set of circumstances, a different peer group, different pressures. So as long as I know my numbers, and I want my team to know their numbers, then I don't have to stare at spreadsheets all the time. I know that they know what they should be doing, and that's enough.
Hmm. Again, Richard, I have like a bunch of questions here, but I think we need a separate episode to cover them.
Yeah.
So let me put a period here. Thank you, Richard, for your time. Just to summarize it quickly, you're a person who enjoys running a boring business. The more boring it is, the better for everybody, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I wouldn't call it. I don't think people who work here think they're in a boring company at all. But I'm saying is that I like to streamline processes. I like to make them drama free, and that we all know what we're doing. So I use the word boring in a kind of extreme and humorous sense. But
Of course.
clearing out the noise is something that's always a good thing to do.
Of course. Of course. Thank you for your time. That was a pleasure.
Thanks, Bartek. Thank you.